Hello and welcome back to another episode here on the platform. Let's talk about it. This is your host, Jasmine Lynn. I'm excited to be here. I just want to say I got my soundboard back up, y'all. I'm just saying, that's your girl is very happy for sure. For sure. But I hope everyone is well who's here with me. The topic we're going to be talking about today, or I should say, I'll be talking about today, and you guys will be sharing the space with me on this topic, is kind of complex. I titled it Let's talk about how society systems are failing, because I felt like that was the most eloquent way I could put it, to be honest. Just transparency. But I'm going to really get in my sociology bag in this episode because for those who don't know, that is what my bachelor was in. But I really do appreciate my undergrad experience specifically for what I did learn about society through my degree because it completely altered the way my mind processed the world. And in a way that I feel like was very necessary. And I want to be able to share that here. That was actually the inspiration for what made me even want to start this podcast in the first place. So, this episode is going to be a good one. I'm excited. So, let's jump into it. So, the framework I'm going to go down is I'm going to explain some theories to you that I learned about. Then I'm going to go along the way and predict whether, if y'all can hear the car in the background, I apologize. The life of a podcaster. Anyway, the theories are going to be designed to kind of help you get a better understanding of the bigger themes I'm going to talk about towards the end. So just follow along with me if you're going to be like, okay, what is she talking about? Because it may feel like school. I'm taking you to school a little bit, but it's okay. Just follow me. So, the first theory I want to talk about is structural functionalism. And to quickly define what functionalism, structural functionalism. Had to enunciate. But that theory established the idea and the importance in society of social institutions for social stability. So, what that implies is that long term, the side effect of that mode of thinking, which for generations has been the case, especially because that's since schools, government, all that has been established, that's basically been the idea that we need structure in society to keep social stability. But the long lasting effects of that mindset is that it implies that far reaching social change will be socially harmful. That's the idea that comes with that mindset of like, okay, we need these institutions in our society to in order to keep us from going into anarchy, you know? And this framework is how our society and many others were established, designed, and brought into existence. Um, it's been the primary ethical explanation as to why social change on a wide scale would be harmful to society. But I charge you guys, I truly do, I charge you to ask yourself, harmful to who? And harmful for who? Okay? So just follow me. This perspective is, like I mentioned previously, a more traditional, one may say, mindset about society. I believe it's definitely popular amongst older generations, especially because that's what they knew. So, of course, that's how they feel. And the older you get, the more stuck in your ways you become. It's not it's the younger you are, the more malleable you are. But the older you get, the more you really settle in with who you are. And so I don't want to like make it seem like, oh, I don't understand why older people think a certain way. I understand it. I don't necessarily succumb to it and choose to think the same way, but I do understand why there is a difference. And I would say that difference really becomes obvious for generations that predate, like the last couple decades of major technological advances. But I digress. With this model, though, and this framework, as far as the theory of structural functionalism in mind, I want us to go down this path of, okay, if you're telling me, oh, society can't function without these institutions and it's so important and that's what keeps stability, and if we don't have stability, if we try to change too much, then that's how anarchy gets started. If that's the story that we've been continually told, what happens when the society's systems are failing? That's kind of where I wanted to start off, the foundation of what I wanted to starting point of this episode, because I genuinely want people to start asking that question, like, okay, yeah, you have this picture perfect American dream crap, for lack of a better way of putting it, that y'all have been putting out, propaganda, one may say, to make people succumb to certain lifestyles and choices and classes, like, let's be real, in groups, so you can manipulate and move people around like chess piece boards. But I digress again. Let's transition into this next segment, because I'm gonna build on that question of what happens when society systems fail. So I just want to, before I move on to conflict theory, I want to just establish the context around where structural functionalism came from, because I know what I told you what it was, but I want you to understand where it came from, because I don't think that the aim was as terrible as it ended up becoming. But it was developed by Emil Durkheim. He was a sociologist. He researched the suicide rates amongst Catholics versus Protestants. And the major takeaway from his study was that they found that strong social sanctions, and social ties play a big difference in the data. And if you're not familiar with the Catholic religion versus the Protestant religion is more individualistic in a way, versus Catholicism is very much group oriented and very, that's the nicest way I can put that. So yeah. And, anything else I was gonna say was be unnecessary. But yeah, so that was the reason why they were like, okay, people need people, right? We need each other. So let's make these institutions that will make sure that we're interconnected. always, as a community, as a state, as a nation. So, conflict theory, Karl Marx, one of my faves personally. Conflict theory emphasized the social inequality of society, and it suggested that far reaching social change was exactly what was needed to achieve a just society. And one of the big themes with that theory is that society is always going to be in a constant state of struggling for power between groups over limited resources. Now, how many groups? Depends on the framework of the government and things like that. But in our country, because I'm an American, I'm going to talk about the framework that we have set up. And I'm a Black American on top of that. But yeah, conflict theory was always one theory going through undergrad that always really stuck out to me. I do find often that people on the younger side, generation wise, empathize with the ideas of this perspective of social change. And that's not new. It's not new that younger people want to advocate. It's been things like that happened before in Vietnam, for example. But moving on, it establishes the theory establishes the social. Oops. So as I was saying, it is that this social theory establishes that there will always be groups struggling for power over limited resources, but in this country specifically, those two groups are the capitalist and the working class. And to give you a more everyday idea of this dynamic in the relationships in our society that display this dynamic are landlord and tenant relationships, employer employee relationships, upper class, lower class tax groups, those relationships, as well as the government and its citizens, business owners and their patrons. The list can go on. Now, the capitalists are the ones in our society that possess wealth and power and possess the ability to own the means of production or control access to means of production. Follow me here. The working class, the working class are those that sell their labor to the capitalist class. The simple definition. Now, the major thing I want people to take away from me bringing this theory up right after I just talked about how they said all these social systems, banks and tax groups and businesses and all these institutions that we have in our society. The simple fact is, it's beneficial for capitalists to keep the working class in a disadvantaged position to maintain status. It's kind of imperative that that be the case, actually. Or as they say, things will fall apart. And that was by design. So I know that was kind of like all over the place a little bit, but I just remember like learning about stuff like this and just being disgusted. Disgusted, like, wow, there all this research, all this knowledge, it's out here and they know what's going on. This is not new to them at all. So, closing out, honestly, I just wanted people to just get a little nugget of information. You know, this was like a little nugget of just some good knowledge to have about the things we're experiencing every day and their connections, the values, the thoughts, the ideas that we accept, ideologies that we accept on a daily, and how they all interact with one another, and how we interact with one another as well. So I really just wanted to close out by acknowledging these main things, which is first, they want people to believe that social change is bad. A recent example of this in the media would be the affirmative action in higher education institutions being eradicated. Because what was the purpose? If I could cue in Cardi B, or was it Cardi B? Whoever said what was the reason? I think it was Cardi. But what was the reason? What was the reason? For because that makes no sense. They already had me twisted with the Roe v. Wade because that was confusing. And then, and then what else? This, it's just, oh, the critical race theory. That's what I was going to say. The critical race theory? Absolutely not. Y'all want to get rid of it? For what? Again, y'all want people to be disadvantaged. Y'all want us to be ignorant. You want us to not know anything. And I'm not doing that. I'm not. I got me a little microphone and I'm going to speak my truth. And the truth is, again, I wish I could cue in Fantasia. I'm gonna upgrade one day, y'all. Just bear with me, because I'm not gonna sing on this microphone. I won't do y'all like that. It's cancer season too. Shout out to Fantasia. My birthday was last weekend. That was really random. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, they want us. The second point. That's what I was gonna say. The second point I want to make is that they want us to believe that the quote unquote status quo of liberty and justice for all, without acknowledging that these systems that were created with all of those ideologies, quote unquote, were created with initial flaws, like from jump, that systemically and institutionally discriminate and disadvantage people based on their perceived proximity to whiteness, and one status based on their gender and sex assignment. So, and the flaws specifically, if we want to label them, are white supremacy, sexism. There are more, but I'll stop there. And until that's acknowledged, it's like you're just feeding me caca. You're feeding me a lot of caca. And I refuse to sit back and just let them do that. Like, no. And I want to provide context and understanding to people who may not have had access to the information that I did, to be able to grow and evolve and learn things because I didn't always know stuff like this. But once I did, it was like, okay, this is important. People need to know this. People need to stop thinking things just happen. Things don't just happen. There are always forces at work that cause things to happen. So the third and final point is that they know what's happening, like I just said, and who it's happening to. And honestly, it's every individual's duty and responsibility to know and find out what has happened and what will continue to happen if change is not made and action is not taken. So what that action looks like may be different for every different person, but I genuinely do believe everything starts with the individual. Everything starts with the individual. You come into this world as an individual. And that's not to be all individualistic or nothing, but you have to be one. And when I mean one, you have to be one with everything. Like you have to be one with a higher power, and the higher powers that cause everything in life, from the rain to the hurricanes, the tornadoes, to the frogs, to the bees, to the pollen, to the sunshine, the phases of the moon. Like all of that is important and a part of how we all thrive and survive in the world. Like we all need each other. Everything, plants, animals, bugs, humans, it's all connected. So yeah, that's all I have for that one, folks. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you don't walk away feeling discouraged from this episode. I was kind of concerned about that when I picked the topic. That's why I've been sitting on this topic for like weeks. But I just was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm in the right energy space to talk about that. But the affirmative action media storm, I should say, definitely kind of motivated me to be like, okay, well, maybe I should talk about some of this stuff. Like, because if you think that they're getting rid of that for no reason, you're tripping. That will have long lasting effects, and it will not be able to be changed for a while. It took a while for this to even happen in the first place. So buckle up. That's all I'm gonna say. Again, I appreciate you guys for being here. I hope you are well. I hope you are safe. And I am excited to share this space with you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.